I dreamed of giving my family the perfect vacation in Hawaii to heal old wounds and bring us back to each other. But my Uncle Larry turned it into a nightmare by bringing in his new girlfriend and her family, expecting me to pay for their lavish feast. And then I learned their dirty secret, a secret that threatened to ruin not only my vacation, but my life. My name's Jacob Wilson. I'm 32, and I live in Evanston, a Chicago suburb, in a modest house with a white picket fence. I bought 3 years ago, taking on a mortgage that still wakes me up in a cold sweat, checking my bank account. My golden Labrador, Max, with graying muzzle and warm brown eyes, greets me every evening at the door, wagging his tail like I'm a hero back from war. I pet his head, and for a moment, the world feels simpler. I work as a sales manager for a company selling construction materials. Not the astronaut dream I had as a kid, but it's steady. It pays the bills, lets me save a couple $100 a month, and doesn't make me dread mornings. My life's a routine. Morning coffee from a cheap machine, traffic jams on I-94, where I listen to motivational podcasts, Netflix evenings, and Max dozing at my feet. I'm not married, no kids, and I'm not complaining. Stability's my anchor in a world that feels fragile, like glass ready to crack at the slightest hit. My family's a maze of old wounds, half-spoken truths, and scars no one wants to touch. My parents, Richard and Elizabeth, divorced when I was 10. Their split was like an earthquake. The house shook with shouts. Mom packed suitcases, her eyes red from crying, while Dad stared at the floor, clutching a mug of cold coffee. I remember sitting on the stairs, hugging my knees, listening as they divided our life. Mom moved to Florida, to a Sarasota condo, where she now surrounds herself with self-help books, morning beach yoga, and friends who call her Liz. Dad stayed in Chicago, in our old Lincoln Park house, where the walls still hold photos of us smiling like nothing broke. They only talk through me or my younger sister Caitlin, and every conversation's a minefield where one wrong word could blow it all up. Caitlin's my opposite. She's 25, an artist, always searching for herself, like a character in an unfinished novel. She rents a tiny apartment in Los Angeles, its walls covered with her paintings. Bold strokes full of emotions she rarely shows us. Caitlin's a dreamer with a sharp tongue that can cut if you cross her. She wears ripped jeans, dyes her hair blue, then pink, and believes her art will one day hang in galleries. I admire her courage, but sometimes I think she's running from the same pain I carry, just faster. Then there's Uncle Larry, Dad's younger brother, a storm, a hurricane that tears through everything. Larry's 45, but looks younger thanks to his tan, loud Hawaiian shirts, and charisma that could sell snow to Eskimos. His blue eyes, like Lake Michigan on a sunny day, always sparkle, not with joy, but with calculation. Larry's never held a job longer than a year, selling used cars in Decatur, throwing shady parties in Miami, or trying to launch a startup for organic smoothies that flopped like all his schemes. He lives off others' kindness, charm, and his knack for vanishing when bills come due. I remember as a kid, Larry would show up at Christmas, eat half the turkey, flirt with Mom until she laughed, and take a bottle of wine for the road. He never brought gifts, but always promised to do something big next time. Next time came a year later, and it was the same story. Dad defended him, saying, "Larry's just finding himself." I saw a leech who latched on to anyone too slow to swat him away. The worst was in 2005. Larry convinced Dad to invest in his business, selling used boats. Dad gave him 10 grand, my college savings. 3 months later, the business tanked, and Larry bought a leather jacket before heading to Vegas to chase luck. Dad worked overtime for 2 years to cover the debts, but never blamed Larry. I stopped trusting my uncle, though I hid it for Dad's sake. I swore I'd never let Larry use me again. My dream grew from pain. After my parents' divorce, we rarely gathered. The last time was my college graduation in 2015. But even then, Mom and Dad sat at opposite ends of the hall, avoiding each other. I wanted to recapture the unity I remembered from childhood. Friday pizza nights, laughing at old comedies like Home Alone, Mom singing to the radio, Dad pretending he wasn't dancing. I saved for 2 years, skipping friend vacations, a new car, even good coffee that smelled like hope. My goal was Hawaii, Maui, a resort with palms, white sand, and turquoise ocean. I imagined us at dinner, Mom smiling at Dad, Caitlin talking about her art, and me watching them, knowing it was worth it. I didn't know Larry was already sharpening his claws, ready to turn my dream into a nightmare. Or that his plan was deeper than I could have guessed. Planning the trip became my escape from Chicago's gray days, where winters smell like road salt and summers like exhaust. I spent hours browsing sites, picking a villa in Wailea. White walls, wooden beams, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific, where waves rolled lazily to shore. It had 4 bedrooms, a pool ringed by palms, and a terrace for coffee at sunset, when the sky turned pink and gold. I pictured us there, listening to the ocean, forgetting old grudges. I booked excursions, hiking Haleakala Volcano for a sunrise above the clouds, snorkeling at Molokini, where the water's clear as glass, and a luau dinner with hula dancers by the beach. I sent tickets to Mom, Dad, and Caitlin, making it clear it was just for us 4. I created a WhatsApp group, Family Vacation, where we chatted about what to pack and what to expect. Caitlin joked about learning hula and buying a shell necklace. Mom dreamed of a spa with coconut-scented massages. Dad grumbled about the heat, but was excited. His tired eyes lit up talking about fishing. I felt like an architect of happiness, building a bridge over the chasm that divided us. But I made a fatal mistake. During a call with Dad, I mentioned Hawaii. I gushed about the villa, stargazing, how it would bring us closer. Dad listened quietly, and I missed how his voice softened when he said he'd talk to Larry. I didn't think much of it. Dad wasn't a gossip, but he had a weakness. He couldn't say no to Larry. I should have been wary, but I was too caught up in my dream, too sure I had it all under control. I tried to brush it off, reminding him it was a family trip, just the 4 of us. I kept my voice calm, but inside, an alarm blared like a siren in the night. Larry was a master manipulator. He mentioned he had a special someone he'd like to bring, Tiffany. I'd heard about her from Dad, Larry's latest girlfriend, who appeared out of nowhere and would likely vanish just as fast. My blood rushed to my face. I knew arguing would let him paint me as selfish to Dad, who'd take his side as always. I remembered 2010, when Larry convinced me to invest in his designer sneaker scheme. I was a naive 20-year-old fresh out of college and gave him $1,000, all I had. The sneakers were fakes, and Larry ghosted for 6 months while I worked 2 jobs to recover. He returned with a new car and a grin like nothing happened. Dad said, "He's your uncle, Jacob. Family forgives." I forgave but didn't forget. Now I was different. But Larry smelled weakness like a shark smells blood. His plan was rolling, and I didn't yet know how deep it would pull me. We landed in Maui on a hot June day. The air was thick, laced with salt, frangipani, and something sweet, almost tangible, like syrup. The sky was cloudless, the sun burned my skin, and palms along the road swayed in a gentle breeze. I watched them as we drove to the villa, feeling months of stress slide off like a heavy coat. Mom marveled at the ocean, her eyes sparkling like a kid seeing the sea for the first time. She pressed her palms to the car window, whispering about the water's blue. Caitlin snapped photos of clouds, her phone clicking every 5 seconds, her pink hair whipping in the wind. Dad, usually quiet, cracked a joke about refusing to wear screaming Hawaiian shirts. I looked at them and thought this was the start of something new, a moment I'd cherish forever, like a photo I'd frame. Then I saw Larry. He stood at the villa's gate in a neon pink Hawaiian shirt with pineapples, grinning like he could light a stadium. His graying hair was slicked back, and he held a cocktail with an umbrella, like he was starring in a rum ad. Next to him was a woman in her mid-30s, in a tight red dress that hugged every curve, with oversized sunglasses hiding half her face. Her bright red lips stretched into a smile, but it was too forced, like an actress forgetting her lines. She introduced herself as Tiffany, Larry's love, but her voice trembled, betraying nerves. That wasn't all. Behind them stood 3 others, a man in his 40s with a dragon tattoo on his neck, a woman with a tired face and a messy bun, and a teen in headphones who looked dragged there against his will. Larry waved them off as Tiffany's family. My heart sank like a stone. I'd booked the villa for 4. Now we were 9. I swallowed my anger, not wanting to ruin day 1. The villa was stunning, like a postcard. White walls, wooden beams, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Pacific, where waves left lacy foam on the shore. The pool gleamed under the sun. The terrace was scattered with hibiscus petals, and the air smelled of coconut and salt. But it wasn't built for a crowd. I gave Larry and Tiffany a bedroom with a canopied bed and ocean view, and their family got the living room with a pull-out sofa and an air mattress from the closet. Ray, the tattooed guy, complained the sofa was too hard and his back wouldn't take it. Sharon, the tired woman, stayed quiet, but her glare screamed entitlement, like I owed her a suite. Brandon, the teen, didn't remove his headphones, but ordered 3 servings of fries via delivery, not asking who'd pay. Larry acted like he owned the place. He ordered poolside cocktails, loudly spinning tales of his adventures in Miami, claiming ties to rappers and club promoters. His voice boomed, drowning out the waves. Tiffany's laugh was too shrill, grating like glass, and she kept adjusting her sunglasses, like she feared her eyes would betray her. Ray and Sharon followed their lead, ordering the priciest menu items: lobster, steaks, $20 rum cocktails. Brandon demanded food every half hour, leaving crumbs on the terrace. I felt my wallet lighten with every sip they took, like they were drinking my blood. At dinner on the terrace, Larry raised his glass for a toast to Jacob's generosity. His voice dripped with fakery, his eyes glinting like a predator spotting prey. Everyone clapped, except me. Mom smiled awkwardly. Dad coughed. Caitlin rolled her eyes. I stared at Larry, anger mixing with unease. His smile wasn't just smug, it was dangerous. I knew this was just the start, but I couldn't imagine how far he'd go or what web he'd already spun around me. By day 2, Larry dodged any talk of money. When I mentioned splitting the dinner bill over breakfast, he waved it off like a joke. His laugh was too loud, too fake, like a talk show host knowing cameras are rolling. He slapped my shoulder, his hand heavy like a warning. Tiffany ordered lobster and steaks, her red polished nails flashing as she flipped through the menu. Ray and Sharon downed exotic cocktails, lava flow, Hawaiian sunset, leaving empty glasses on every table. Brandon demanded more fries and milkshakes, his headphones blocking everything but his appetite. I tallied it in my head. 2 days, $1,200 spent. My credit card groaned like an overheated engine, and the trip had just begun. Caitlin caught my eye at lunch and whispered she'd overheard Larry boasting to Tiffany that I was a rich businessman who'd cover everything. Her words hit like a slap. I clenched my fists under the table, nails digging into my palms. I wasn't rich, just a guy who saved 2 years to give my family a dream. Larry knew that, but didn't care. He saw me not as a nephew, but as an ATM. I recalled 2008, when Larry borrowed $500 from me for urgent car repairs. I was a college kid, living on a scholarship and cafe tips, but believed him. The car was new. The money went to a Lake Tahoe casino. He returned broke, but grinning like nothing happened. Dad said, "Don't hold a grudge, Jacob." I didn't, but the scar lingered. Now, history was repeating, but the stakes were higher. Not $500, but my entire vacation, my whole dream. On day 3, I found a clue to the truth. Larry left his phone on a poolside lounger, and I glimpsed a text on the screen. From Tiffany. "Make him pay for everything, or we're screwed." My heart pounded like a drum. I acted like I saw nothing, but the words burned inside like hot coal. They weren't just after a free trip. They expected me to cover their debts. I suspected Larry brought Tiffany and her family for a reason. This was a scheme, and I was the mark. I watched Larry closer. He often slipped away to take calls, returning with a nervous smile, fixing his hair. His movements were too quick, too jittery, like someone knowing they're being watched. Tiffany acted odd too, always checking her phone, once hiding the screen when I approached. Her fingers shook, her smile strained like a mask about to crack. Ray and Sharon kept their distance, but their eyes held expectation, like they awaited a signal. Brandon seemed clueless. But his appetite was a black hole, devouring everything in reach. I felt Larry's web tightening around me, sticky and invisible like a spider's trap. I didn't know how deep his debts ran, but my gut screamed it was more than overdue bills. I decided to dig deeper, keeping my anger leashed like a wild beast ready to break free. On day 4, we went on a Halakala volcano tour. I paid for just our family, a hike to the crater, a guide, lunch in the mountains with views of lava fields. The landscape was breathtaking, black rocks gleaming under the sun, clouds drifting below the peak, air smelling of earth and freedom. I wanted this day to bond us, to let us forget the past and just be together. Mom snapped sunrise photos. Caitlin sketched in her notebook. Dad gazed at the horizon, and I thought this was why I'd saved. But Larry and his crew tagged along, acting invited, posing by the crater and ordering snacks from the guide. Tuna sandwiches, coconut water, fruit salads. Tiffany struck poses for photos, her dress fluttering like a flag claiming territory. Ray and Sharon griped about the heat, but stuck around. Brandon trailed behind, munching chips. When the guide asked who'd cover their share, Larry laughed loudly and pointed at me. His gesture was theatrical, his eyes bold with audacity. Blood rushed to my temples, like lava ready to erupt. I silently handed over my card, but inside, I was raging. That night, we dined at a Ka'anapali oceanfront restaurant. Waves crashed on rocks, lanterns reflected in the water, and the scent of grilled fish mixed with hibiscus. Waiters in white shirts glided between tables, and live music, guitar and ukulele, created a paradise illusion. But I couldn't relax. Larry ordered a $250 wine bottle. Tiffany got oysters and filet mignon. Ray and Sharon 2 desserts each. Brandon a truffle oil burger and 3 fries servings. The bill hit $2,300. I stared at the numbers, anger flooding me like molten magma seeking release. I asked the waiter to split the bill. Larry rolled his eyes like I was a kid throwing a tantrum. His voice grew louder, laced with venom masked as humor. He said I was breaking the family vibe, that real men don't count cash. Dad rubbed his temples, his face tense as always when he avoided conflict. Mom stared at her plate, twisting her napkin. Caitlin gripped her fork, knuckles white, fighting the urge to speak. I felt their eyes but couldn't back down. I said I'd pay only for our family. Tiffany whined they didn't bring enough cash. Her voice shook, but her eyes held calculation, like a gambler knowing they're losing, but not ready to fold. Larry glared at me with contempt, but I caught something new in his look. Worry, a crack in his perfect mask. I paid my share in cash and left the table. My legs shook, but I didn't look back. I walked to the car, the Maui air heavy like before a storm. I knew this wasn't over. Larry wouldn't quit easily, and I had to brace for his next move. But I also knew I wouldn't let him trample my dream anymore. The next day, I decided to uncover Larry's secrets. His frequent call breaks and nervous hair fixing screamed guilt. Tiffany's phone obsession and quick screen hiding raised flags. Ray and Sharon's expectant stares felt like they were waiting for a cue. Brandon was oblivious, but his endless appetite drained me like a black hole. I tailed Larry like a noir detective, rain replaced by Maui's sun. That evening, when he went for a walk, I followed. He stopped at a Lahaina beach bar, lanterns reflecting on the water, reggae muffling voices. Larry met a man in a pricey suit, slick hair, and a gold chain gleaming under the lights. They spoke low, but I caught snippets. Debts, deadlines up, need more. My heart raced. Larry was in trouble, and I was his lifeline. Back at the villa, adrenaline pumping, I found Caitlin on the terrace, sketching the sunset, her fingers smudged with charcoal. I spilled everything, showing the screenshot I'd taken of Larry's text. Her eyes narrowed like a cat ready to pounce. She suggested checking social media. We found Tiffany's Instagram, flaunting her luxury vacation with bikini pool shots, cocktails, and sunsets. But the comments were red flags. Pay me back, and you promised to settle the debt. One user mentioned court and cops. The puzzle clicked. Larry and Tiffany weren't just mooching. They were hiding from creditors, and I was their temporary shield. I decided to play their game. I acted friendlier, like I'd forgiven the dinner fiasco. I smiled at Larry, joked with Tiffany, even complimented Ray's tacky tattoo. I suggested a special dinner to end the trip, to clear the air. Larry's eyes lit up, thinking I'd caved, but I was setting a trap. I gathered evidence, saved texts, recorded Larry's calls on my phone's voice app, snapped a zoomed-in photo of the bar guy for details. I felt like a spy, but this was my war, and I wasn't losing. The special dinner was at Mama's Fish House, Maui's priciest spot in Hana. I chose it deliberately, knowing Larry and Tiffany couldn't resist. The place was a postcard, wooden tables with orchids, flickering candles in glass holders, ocean views where the sunset painted the water crimson and gold. Waiters in white shirts moved like shadows, and the aroma of grilled mahi-mahi mingled with coconut rice. Larry ordered truffles and foie gras, his fingers greasy as he cut his food. Tiffany picked oysters and $300 champagne, her laugh sharp like clinking glasses. Ray and Sharon downed rum cocktails, faces flushed. Brandon demanded gold leaf ice cream, his spoon clanging. I watched, hiding a smile. This was their last feast. The bill hit $4,200. I asked for a split. Larry froze, His fingers locked on his glass, like time stopped. Tiffany's nervous laugh cracked like a taut string. I calmly said I'd cover only my family. Larry tried leaning on Dad, his voice loud be fake hurt. But Dad, to my shock, shook his head. For the first time, he didn't cave. His face was tired but firm, like he finally saw Larry for what he was. Mom looked away, twisting her napkin, but her pursed lips backed Dad. Caitlin clutched her napkin, eyes gleaming like she was proud. Larry turned to blackmail, hinting he knew something about my past. A $15,000 credit card debt from 5 years ago when I tried starting a sports nutrition business, dreaming of being the next GNC. It crashed and Dad bailed me out. I still owe him $3,000. Larry held it like a trump card. My heart squeezed, but I stayed cool. I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots of his text with Tiffany. His face went ashen, like volcanic dust. He knew he'd lost. Tiffany sobbed, mascara streaking her cheeks like ash trails. Ray and Sharon sat silent, eyes empty like players out of moves. Brandon stared at the floor, headphones dangling. The waiter waited, and the air grew heavy, like before a storm. The next day, I gathered my family on the villa's terrace. The sunset painted the sky crimson, gold, and purple, like a Caitlin painting. Waves crashed, their rhythm like a sleeping giant's breath. Palms rustled, the air thick with salt and flowers. But the mood was leaden, like the island knew what was coming. Larry and Tiffany tried dodging the talk, claiming exhaustion, but I insisted. I wanted the truth heard. I laid it out. Their debts, creditors. How they used our trip to hide. I showed the texts, Instagram comments demanding Tiffany pay up. My recording of Larry's bar talk, with a collector I later ID'd from Miami. My voice was steady, but inside, I shook with rage like a volcano ready to blow. Tiffany cried, mascara streaking like ash. Larry stammered excuses, misunderstanding, temporary trouble, his voice cracking with fear. Dad snapped. He stood, face red, veins bulging. He told Larry no more bailouts. He was done being his bank. His voice was hoarse, like he'd held those words for years. Mom backed him, her voice soft but solid like a rock. She said Larry had hurt the family before, her words hanging like a verdict. Caitlin walked off, her steps on the terrace wood loud like gunshots. Ray, Sharon, and Brandon packed and left that day. Their taxi vanished into the night like a fading shadow. Larry stayed, pleading we could fix it. He stood on the terrace, shirt rumpled, hair messy, eyes empty, like a man who'd lost everything. But I was firm. I said he wasn't family until he owned his actions. I remembered as a kid, Larry promised to take me to Disneyland if I was good. I waited all year, dreaming of rides and cotton candy. Instead, he spent the money on a car and left, breaking my heart. I believed him then, but now I saw him clearly. He wasn't just greedy, he was hollow, feeding off others' kindness, leaving nothing behind. Our last vacation day, we dined as four on the terrace. The ocean roared, waves steady like a giant's pulse. Stars burned bright, diamonds on black velvet. Palms whispered, the air rich with salt, flowers, and freedom. For the first time in years, there was no tension, like we'd shed a burden we'd carried too long. Mom shared about her yoga, her voice soft as seafoam, eyes glowing. Caitlin showed sketches from Maui, sunsets, volcanoes, vibrant oceans. Her charcoal-stained fingers danced, her smile like she'd found what she'd been seeking. Dad even teased my detective skills, and we laughed, truly together for the first time in years. I looked at them, warmth spreading in my chest like Maui's sun had settled inside me. My dream came true, Not as planned, but better. We didn't just vacation, we grew closer, stronger, honest. Larry never called again. I heard he's back in Chicago, job hunting. But I don't care. He's a shadow, a memory I'm ready to release. This trip changed me. I learned family isn't just blood. It's those who respect you, not use you. It's those who stand by you when truth hurts. I won't let Larry or anyone manipulate me again. I learned to say no, and it's my shield. Looking at the ocean, I knew I'd done right. I protected my family, my dream, and myself. And maybe, for the first time, I felt not just Jacob Wilson, Chicago sales manager, but a man who found his path. What would you do in my shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments.